Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors, episode 20.
Welcome to Life by Design, the podcast for chiropractors. Here's your host, Dr. Jamie Richards.
Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors, the voice of reason in chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards. On today's episode, we cover the number one most fatal marketing mistake chiropractors make. On the first two episodes in this three-part series, we covered number 3, follow-up, and number 2, your blueprint. So go back and listen to those episodes if you didn't. There's a lot of content there you're not going to want to miss. And that leads us up to today's episode, number 1. The number one most fatal mistake marketers make in chiropractic. Really one of those things that most people wouldn't think is the number one mistake in the number one slot. And that is your market. Who are you selling your product to? And yes, chiropractic is a product. You need to understand this. I think that this episode is really going to challenge a lot of the things that you're currently thinking about, how you're communicating to people and who you're trying to communicate. Should give you some answers as to why some of your marketing isn't working and how you can start to right that ship. Now, one of the things we spent a lot of time on over this three-part series is what not to do. So we also want to make sure that you have information about what to do. And one of the best places to do that and start this process is online. There happens to be 4 billion people online right now. And sadly, chiropractors' presence and their marketing online is either non-existent or it's really, really poor. So we're going to run a webinar for everybody who's listening. Jump in, www.lifebydesignforchiropractors.com/online-sales-funnel. That's www.lifebydesignforchiropractors.com/online sales funnel. You can go there and you can register for this webinar. We're going to walk you through the process on how to design and build a high converting chiropractic sales funnel online. And I can tell you that it works because it's what we use in my practice and it's what we use in other practices that we've designed these for, and they work. We're going to show you a 7-step process that moves people from your community to your office. How we get them from oblivious to curious and then where they need to be, and that's to see you. How you can create the perfect lead magnet that people will actually give you their name and email for, something we get a lot of questions about. If you don't know how to use the new Facebook ads feature that is going to make the process 100 times easier, even if you've never tried Facebook advertising before, one thing you must get right in order to maximize your return on your investment with all your marketing projects, and 3-step process to follow up. Because if you're not following up with people, if you don't have a strategy to follow up, you're missing out on tons and tons of conversions, and you're missing the whole point of putting all of this in place. You need to have that in place. So we're going to walk through all those things on a webinar. Go and register, lifebydesignforchiropractors.com/online sales funnel. Enjoy today's episode of Life by Design for Chiropractors.
Hey, Christian, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good. It's ridiculously hot and humid in London, and I'm super pumped. I'm standing up. I'm like pumping my fists up in the air. I'm super excited to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, well, you not only are you back, but we brought you back for the number one most fatal marketing mistake that chiropractors make. So it's,
I know
you got to come back for the number one piece, Christian.
I know. I feel so humble. I didn't even have to wrestle Mike for it or anything.
No, this one's all yours today. So we're going to dig into it in a bit, and I know there's lots of great things that is happening, and specifically around Life by Design for Chiropractors. If you haven't checked out the Life by Design TV, the new Facebook Live, something that we're testing in our own offices as well as testing for Life by Design for Chiropractors. We're going to be doing a little bit about this at the upcoming LifeCon. So we just wanted to make sure we had it all streamlined and all the kinks worked out. So far, so good. It's actually been a lot of fun. I saw yours yesterday, Christian.
Yeah, I'm like you, Jamie. I like going off the cuff. I don't really prepare or plan. I just kind of stand up and start talking, and sometimes it goes great. And the more I practice, the better that it goes. Mm-hmm. It's been grading. It's been getting a great reach. People have been sharing it. It's been awesome. It's been awesome. Yeah. And the one that you're recording for chiropractors has been awesome too. And, I kind of got a man crush on you. I'm a big fan.
Oh, Cratio, you're so sweet.
So sweet. I know.
Yeah, it's one of those things, guys. If you want to check it out, you can see it, do it Thursday mornings, Eastern Standard Time, 7:30 a.m. So wherever you are around the world, whatever 7:30 Eastern Standard Time is, you can find it there. Also, usually pops around the.
I got a question for you. So Eastern Standard Time sounds, why is the abbreviation for Eastern Standard Time? If anyone can answer this, I would be very grateful. Why is the abbreviation GST instead of, shouldn't it be EST? Isn't that weird?
Well, I always put EST, but
yeah,
I think
it's GST.
I know it doesn't have something to do with the international date line or something like that. Like, I can't remember the exact, the exact what it was, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure, Cratio. I think it was something to do with Greenland Standard Time, or I don't know. Yeah, Greenwich. Weird. That's what it is. Cratio, Greenwich.
Oh, nice, Gene. That's awesome.
I knew it's something with the line, the international date line or something like that. So again, I might be completely off, by the way, but that sounds like it has something to do with it. So again, we'd have to check that out later and let you know. But today we're talking about the number one most fatal marketing mistake that chiropractors make. And I think this will surprise people. If you haven't done work in this area before and you haven't thought about this, I really think that this is going to be surprising. I don't think people pay a lot of attention to it. And, we kind of tooled around with moving, the last two episodes. If you haven't listened to the last two episodes, go back and listen to those and you'll get number 3 and number 2. But, either of those could have been shifted up here. But I guess at the end of the day, what really came about was the importance of your market versus the importance of your product. And, you could have the best product, the best service. You could be writing the best copy. You could be, and do amazing videos. You could have everything else right. But when it comes down to it, if you don't know your market, then you have a really huge problem on your hands.
Yeah, so I totally agree. We're talking. Can we say what we're talking about?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, we're talking about your avatar. So when I say your market, I guess I'm talking more specifically about your avatar.
Yes, and I when I really started studying the greats of marketing, people like John Carlton and David Ogilvy and Gary Halbert, people that have made money hand over fist marketing. They all said, and I'll even read it. I have a great Gary Halbert quote here that I have written down. And I'm not going to lie, I was totally guilty of this when I started in practice. But you need to understand before you even start selling a product, and make no mistake, chiropractic is a product. You have to have somebody to sell it to. And the biggest mistake, the number one reason that businesses fail is they don't understand who they're selling it to. And sometimes, and this is crazy, is people create a product and there's absolutely nobody to buy it.
Right.
It's just right.
Yes.
And you can't have that. That is a recipe for disaster. So
well, and this is, go ahead, Chris, read your quote.
Yes, sure. So Gary Halbert said, don't become a student of products, but do become a student of markets. Know your markets better than you know your products. If you fall in love with your product, it will blind you to reality. If there's not a market, reconsider the products.
Sounds a lot like chiropractic, Cratio.
Absolutely. And I'm still guilty of it. Sometimes I love chiropractic. I really do. I see the potential. I know what it can do for the human body. I know what it can do for the health of everyone under care. But if nobody cares about it, then it's not going anywhere. And if you don't know how to speak to the people, which is what we're going to talk about on this podcast specifically, but if you don't know how to speak to the people that you're trying to reach, then forget about it too.
So let's just highlight and spend a little bit of time on this because I think it talks about the current state of how the profession is. And we're going to focus on chiropractors who are probably listening to this show, people who are either second or third paradigm chiropractors, straight chiropractors, objective straight chiropractors, the different categories, I guess. That's a whole other topic. If you go back to actually previous episodes, you can hear us talk about that. But nonetheless, the point is we do fall so much in love with our chiropractic that we forget that the market that you're bringing your chiropractic to maybe doesn't really care about chiropractic the same way you do. So if you communicate chiropractic, we're not saying chiropractic isn't a good product and it can't be sold. It can be. It's been proven over and over again.
It's the exact opposite, actually. We're saying that chiropractors are so bad at knowing their market and their avatar that the product has sold just on the product itself. It's so amazing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you could just get the other part of it right, which is the most important part, it's the number one most fatal mistake our chiropractic profession makes. If you could get this part right and actually know your market, then you could position your product so that your market is not just willing to buy, but they're ready to buy, they're excited to buy, and they actually start looking for you and what you deliver. So, Horatio, can you just start off by talking about, what is an avatar? People have never heard this term before. Give me a definition.
Yeah, sure. So an avatar is a fictional character that represents your ideal prospect. When complete, it will help you understand the motivating beliefs, fears, and secret desires that influence your customers' buying decisions.
Okay, so talk a little bit about the different components of that, because I think each one of those really deserves a little bit of time in breaking this down.
Right. So, I mean, we're going to get into the mistakes that most people make when they're trying to create their avatar. But the first thing that you have to understand is that it's a fictional person. It's not somebody that's actually out there. It's representing the best qualities. Like, if you could make the ideal person, if everything would just line up and you could just see, this person day after day after day after day, that's exactly what you want this person to be like, right? And it helps you get into their mindset, why they make the decisions that they make. What are they really scared of? What are their underlying burning desires, right? Like when somebody comes in and, they write that they're here to see you because they have back pain. They're not really there to see you because they have back pain, because you're way more expensive than Tylenol or aspirin, right? Those solutions are much cheaper, much easier. And when you pry a little bit more, they've probably been having the back pain for the last 4 to 5 years. So what the heck just happened to have them actually come into your practice after 4 or 5 years of back pain, right? Like you have to really understand where these people are coming from and how to talk to them. Or if not, you're totally going to blow this, and you're not going to, like I said, like we talked about at the beginning, you're not going to have a successful business, or you're not going to have people that actually want the product that you're selling.
So, I think this is the fun part in practice, right? Is that when you know who the right person is, when you know your avatar, selling to these people is actually very, very easy. And it becomes the framework for your blueprint, for your marketing system and your marketing, avenues. You have to get this right, or at least as close to right as you possibly can get. And as we go through today, you'll see this takes a lot of work to get right. There's a lot of changes and tweaking and revisiting, and, you might have 2 avatars, and there's a bunch of other factors here that we'll get into. But, when you get this right, or really closely aligned with the reality of what you're trying to attract and bring into your practice and the people you want to take care of, it really should be easy. And that's how you can actually tell, Horatio, in practice is, if you're having a hard time at day 1 or day 2, and, you're trying to, essentially deal with people and they're not getting it, or it's this uphill struggle, there's a chance that you're bringing in people who aren't your avatar. And, this is something I think that's really interesting. People ask me when we're doing coaching or consulting, my conversion at day 1 or day 2, it's only 60%. Is there anything I can do better? Yeah, get better people. Right? You want to increase your conversion percentage, get the right people in your practice. You can do everything right, and if you have the wrong people in your practice, I'll tell you a funny story here, actually, Horatio, and I think this is actually an outlier, so maybe it's not the right place, but it's a pretty funny story, so I'm going to tell it anyway. Definitely not the right person in my practice last week. Comes in, 77 years old, okay? Very difficult to understand, couldn't really hear me. I couldn't really hear him. Just not good. Comes in, lower back pain, which is definitely not my avatar, and sits down, what brought you in? I have lower back pain. Tried to probe, tried to get deeper. His only desire was to get rid of his lower back pain, okay? I did everything possible, Horatio, in this visit to try and get him to say no. Literally, aside from saying to him, I can't accept you into my practice, I said, you really should probably check into traditional chiropractic. Why don't we get you an appointment down the street at the traditional chiropractor? Well, I really think that I should probably just do what you just said. And I had gone through everything as he deserved to understand the concept. Day 2, same thing. Gord, one of the options you could have is go to a traditional chiropractor. It's only going to cost you $200, and he'll probably be able to take care of you and you'll feel better. Or option 3 is we could start your corrective care. It's going to take a lot of time and cost you a lot of money. What option did he pick, Ratio? Option 3. Anyway,
I didn't want to get it wrong.
I couldn't even get it wrong. Like, I tried to not have him start and literally he's like, no, this is a problem. I got to take care of it. So there's an instance where your internal systems are so good, you could have the wrong person, but honestly, you don't want to have to do that. You want to just get the right person. So that conversation, even if your internal systems aren't very well defined yet, it's going to be an easy path to that process.
Yeah, so let's just backtrack a little bit because you dropped some gold at the beginning that we definitely need to revisit. So what you're talking about, Jamie, is you're talking about why it's important that you know your avatar, right? And it's so unfortunate, again, because people listening to the podcast, you might have a really low conversion percentage on day 1 and day 2, and you're thinking, man, I suck at day 1 or day 2. I need to learn some selling tricks. I need to learn how to sell better. I need to, learn tips and tactics. Yeah, that might be true, but maybe you're just talking to the wrong people. Maybe you need to look at it from the other end. Maybe what you need to be doing is you need to be investing some time and effort in learning your marketing and learning how to communicate with the people that you actually want to be driving into your practice. And here's the goal that you dropped earlier is it absolutely, and I'm hoping that everyone has had this experience in practice. This is like, when you get this right, this is like that person that comes in for visit 1 and they're pretty much finishing your sentences for you.
Right.
And then when it comes time to the buying decision, not only do they say, yes, but they say, you know what, I should probably refer my family because the kids need to get checked too and my husband's going to be coming in. Like, it's just one of those moments you're just like, yes, this would be amazing if practice was like this all the time. And the truth of the matter is it can be like this most of the time, but you got some work to do. There's a reason that this is mistake number 1, right? Like, most people aren't doing this.
Well, let me just share, the mistake I think people make. You can tell me if you make this. And it took a long time for me to get my head around this. And again, I still honestly think it's still a challenge. And, I think the concept we've been dealing with lately, Horatio, you, I, Mike, Rochelle, talking about, is there multiple avatars and things like that, has helped me understand a bit more, because the natural, I think, mindset for the chiropractor is, well, my avatar is everybody. That's just, I think, a normal mindset for people in business probably, but specifically for chiropractors, right? Because we know that everybody's better off not subluxated. And we have this, mentality we've been told from the stage over and over, a subluxation-free world. That means we got to get 8 billion people under care. I mean, from a business perspective, that's ludicrous, right?
Oh my God. Have I made that mistake? Absolutely. Because I listen to the same speakers and the same role models, that you had. It's just not number one, it's not a realistic business model. You can't, you quote me all the time on this one, but you can't be everybody's chiropractor. Like, you just pick the people who you want to help and go look after them, because they're going to make practice fun. Anyone that's been listening to us at all knows that we're not, big advocates of the self-sacrificial model where you have to see everyone and charge them $1.50. I really want chiropractors to take their proper role in healthcare, which is at the top, being excellent clinicians, excellent doctors. That's what I want to help them with. So yes, absolutely. You don't have to serve everybody.
Yeah. I think that, now understanding that, starting to craft a very clear idea of who it is you want to take care of and why you want to take care of that person. Does that person exist? It's a whole other question. As we were talking about before earlier, is that market even there? Yep. And how do you start to put that person together? So let's go back and I'm going to ask you a few questions here, Horatio.
Sure.
How do you determine who it is that you want, to have as an avatar? How do you pick? I mean, we've been told that, everybody needs chiropractic.
Sure. So, if there's 2 ways to do this. And if you've been in practice for any number of years or, any number of months or even a year, the simplest way to do it is to list, 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 or however many of your favorite practice members, and the people who, do exactly as you say, they follow through with everything that you do, and to actually list them out and to write as many, and I mean, there's lots of avatar exercises that you can find online, but to list as many qualities as possible, about them. And what you're going to notice is that a lot of the ones that you like looking after, they have a lot of very similar things. They're similarly educated, for example. They have the same number of kids. They have the same type of husband. Like in our office, when we actually sat down and did this last quarter, because that's when we do it, we realized that some of our best practice members had, this is crazy when you think about it, but their husbands were not under care. The 2 kids were under care and the husband was not, but the husband was really supportive. Like the husband would actually bring the kids in on the weeks when the kids were supposed to get checked and the mom was away, but they didn't get checked. And nonetheless, some of these are some of our best practice members. So that's way number 1. Look at some of the best practice members. Way number 2, which is a little bit harder if you really have no idea, I would just start out of the blue. I would just start with, who do I think is going to be the exact ideal person? And then, try to find out. I mean, this is where social media is great, because you can do what's called creeping people. You can actually look at what people, right?
AKA market research, Crayshow.
AKA market research, but it has a term and everyone does it, right? So it's socially acceptable, which is fine, but you can learn a lot about people. I think this is where a lot of chiropractors get social media wrong, because we're too busy, spewing off about innate intelligence and not vaccinating. What we need to be doing is we need to be listening to the people in our community. They tell us what they want. Just stop talking and start listening. So those are the 2 ways that I think would be the best for you to start.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And obviously there's a couple homework assignments people can start with right now. In terms of the mistakes that are made when people are going through it, and we talked about number 1, which was just either having no avatar or too big of a pool. Do you know what I mean? Of your avatar. So my avatar is 18 to 65-year-old, men and women who make $10,000 to $1 million a year. It's like, that's a huge mistake, right? So can you give us some examples of how having an undefined avatar would yield really poor results in, say, Facebook advertising, So, whether it is in creating your ads or writing your copy, just kind of give maybe a real world example of how this will fail if you think you're trying to communicate to everybody versus a very specific person.
Sure. So you want, I'll give you the 3 biggest mistakes that chiropractors make when creating their avatar. Number 1, you did a great job of, we made it like a joke, but you're absolutely right. If I'm too specific, and what's going to happen is, I'm going to leave everyone else off the table and I'm not going to be able to take care of them. That's not true. You can have more than 1 avatar. Our practice actually has 3 avatars, and I can share them if you want. But
sure, yeah, go ahead, Christian.
Sure. So I'm not going to go into every single detail, but our first avatar is, Amanda McCallum. She is 35 years old, teacher, makes about $65,000 a year. She's got 2 kids, age 7 and 9, right? Likes Oprah, likes, what's the lady's name? Brené Brown, the lady who wrote Against All Grain, right? The other avatar we have is between a 55-year-old female who has older kids. Her kids are about 30 years old and 28 years old. She has hormone problems, low energy, into self-care, and I named this person. And the other one that we have, which is really, really interesting, and I did this from studying the people that were coming into our practice, is actually a 30-year-old male whose wife is not under care. They have kids who are not under care. They play a sport, at least one sport, and it was just interesting. So you want to be as specific as possible. And right. I'll go into why in a second. I just want to talk about the 2 other mistakes. So mistake number 1 is not being specific enough. Mistake number 2 is I've seen a lot of chiropractors who have a lot of great avatars, but now when it comes to actually leveraging that avatar into some type of marketing or some type of advertising, it seems like when chiropractors create avatars, it's just this exercise that we do and we feel really, really good about, and then we put the document away and then we totally forget about it. Every single time that you go onto your Facebook page or you go to create a video or you go to write an email, you need to open up your document and you need to picture this person in your mind and you need to talk to them. This is why specificity is so important. You need to speak to them specifically. You need to create a scenario in your mind where you'd actually be sitting down with this person and you would actually be having a dialogue or a conversation, and you need to write like you're actually communicating to them. This is where the whole big problem comes for chiropractors, is they don't know how to market to this person. You need to be able to do that. And the third mistake is we don't treat our avatar like it's an actual person. Like, this is a document that once you start, you really need to spend time refining it. You're always going to be learning more about the people that you want to see. Maybe you've created an avatar that is totally wrong and you have to start from the beginning. But nonetheless, this is a document that's always alive and that you should always, be adding to. Remember, guys, this is the fundamental basic piece of your marketing. And if you don't know, if the market doesn't exist, you're going to fail. So you really need to be good at this. So that was a long-winded answer, but hopefully that was valuable.
Yeah, and I think that you highlighted a bunch of very important points there, so people have to rewind that part and listen to it again. And from a tangible perspective, how this would play out, guys, is let's say you haven't really defined your avatar and you're running a Facebook ad where you're actually going to spend money in advertising, or maybe worse, because Facebook actually is cheap in terms of advertising for what you get. It's actually a great advertising source. Yeah, it's amazing. But let's say you're doing newspaper advertising and you're popping, $250 for a newspaper ad, and the ad just says, we can help, or it has the 7 warning signs, or, something like that. You're missing the point. You might as well just be lighting money on fire. And, unless, of course, your avatar is just everybody in pain, then, maybe that's a legitimate advertising direction. But you get the idea. If you don't know who you're talking about, you can't write an ad that has just this blanket approach. So when you're writing your copy, you're picking your picture, all these things pertain to the avatar that you're actually speaking to.
Well, let's use that example. Let's go back and let's quickly talk about, people who are like, well, I'm just going to target people in pain. Great. Okay, so you're going to target people in pain. Is it a male person in pain, or is it a woman person in pain? Because that's going to totally change what picture you're going to pick, right? I mean, if you're going to have the classic chiropractic picture of somebody grabbing their low back or somebody grabbing their neck, right? Again, you're going to have to pick a female in the picture or a male in the picture, right? So you're going to have to differentiate or be more specific with your avatar right off the bat. What age is the person in the picture? Because if you pick a young woman, then, again, you're being more specific. So it doesn't matter. You can't bypass this conversation by saying something as silly as, I just want people in pain. Because there's no such thing as a person in pain. There is a specific person. There is a mom who's 35 years old with 2 kids in pain. There's going to be a completely different conversation with her than like the person that came into your practice, a 77-year-old, retired man with grown-up kids and pretty much grown-up grandchildren in pain. 2 very separate, different conversations, and you have to know how to speak to both of them differently in order to have any success whatsoever.
Right. So to use examples here, Chris, we've talked about the biggest mistakes, and I think chiropractors have made every biggest mistake possible in terms of avatar and specifically with advertising, from, the discounted ad to quoting BJ Palmer in your ads or innate intelligence and so on. So maybe just talk about how ridiculous that is and how crazy some of the chiropractic marketing actually is, and, why having an avatar would actually either fix that or they wouldn't even write these types of ads.
Sure. So, I mean, in chiropractic, one of the biggest complaints that we hear, from the chiropractors that we chat with and the people that we meet at seminars and people that come to LifeCon is, I really want people to value what it is that I do. I really want people in my practice who understand the importance of chiropractic, who make their appointments, and who really think that chiropractic is important, and then they go make an ad, that has the, free exam and come in for the monthly special or whatever. Like, that is, if you want quality people, you can't be creating ads that have discounts on them. Like, that's just a simple contradiction. You have to create, again, you're speaking to the wrong avatar, because the people who want quality are not the people who are going to be, taken in by a discounted fee.
Right. They're not the people motivated by just coming in for a free examination.
No, they're motivated by excellence. If you want people who are going to pay and who are going to be great practice members and quality in your practice, then you have to be a really good doctor, and you have to advertise, market, and communicate like somebody who's an excellent doctor, right? You can't bypass that. Yes, the other ones, of course, are the other big contradiction that I see is we have, a lot of chiropractors have figured out that the majority of their market is women, between 35 to 55, especially, like you mentioned, paradigm 2 or paradigm 3 chiropractors, hormone problems, or at least some type of wellness issues, right? And then they go ahead and they post ads and they communicate to their public, about how medicine is killing people and how you're stupid if you're taking these hormone replacements and medications. And your avatar is reading this and saying, oh my God, I'm taking these hormone replacement therapies and I'm taking these medications, and this person's calling me an idiot. I'm definitely not going to come and see them.
Right. Well, we're going back to the avatar and understanding the psychology and the makeup of this person, right? They're not motivated by fear per se, and they're definitely not attracted to a doctor that they're going to work with who is telling them that what they're already doing is wrong, right? And that's why, as an avatar, knowing the psychological makeup, their fears, the things that motivate them, the things they care about, that's what you want to write your ads about, right? You want to bring them to you, and especially, again, when you're trying to attract people who care about excellence, who want a solution, who want a doctor who they're doing. You have to craft your ads and your images and your headlines.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at your practice. I'm willing to bet, Jamie, that some of the practice members that have been with you the longest are very, very analytical people. They've taken the time and they've really listened to all the podcasts. They've read all your articles. They read all your emails. And because it's written so well and it makes sense to them, that's why they've chosen to be a part of your practice for such a long time. So you know how to speak to that avatar.
Right. No, I totally agree. And this is something I can get a lot better at.
Me
it's
too.
It's an ongoing project. And I think, Krisha, we'll kind of end on this note is this is something that is going to just take time, right? It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to have to fix it. You're going to do your market research /creeping. And, you're really going to have to continue to work on this and really do what Krisha said, and that's create a document that kind of houses your avatars that you can easily access when you're writing your copy, doing an ad, picking a picture. Really get in tune and connected and, get in the mind of your avatar. So that way when you're speaking to them, which is what you're doing when you're writing on Facebook, it's what you're doing when you're writing an email, it's what you're doing when you write an article or record a video, you are talking to somebody else who you want to listen to you. You're not talking just however you think you should talk. You're not just, quote unquote, being yourself and, this is just me. I want to talk about vaccines. This is just me. I want to talk about how drugs suck. Well, that's fine. That can just be you, and you won't get through to your market. That can just be you, and you won't, be as profitable as you could be or have the impact that you could have. So, last couple of thoughts, Krisha, on today's topic, the number one most fatal mistake that chiropractors make with their marketing. What do you want to leave people with before we take off for today's episode?
Sure. So I listened to, it was an awesome podcast that you and Mike recorded about mistake number 3, a while back. And, I love the way that you put it. I think this is what it really comes down to for chiropractors. We're so quick to tell our practice members, that things are going to take time, that it's going to take a lot of money, that health doesn't get rebuilt overnight. But yet, we understand that when it comes to health, but we think that it's going to be different when it comes to our business or anything else in life. I think that's the most important thing that people can take away from this podcast is this is going to be difficult. It's going to be painful, and you're probably going to have there's going to be a steep learning curve at the beginning. But if you guys can get this right, I mean, I don't even have it right. I have it somewhat right. And the results have been awesome. So I just, you just keep struggling and you keep working towards it. And the better that you get, the better the results that you're going to get.
Yeah, so true. So true, chiropractors. listen in, take heed, and really get the mindset shifted. Because again, this is a process that takes time, and as soon as you just accept that it's going to take a lot of time, hard work, money, investment, pain. That's just how it is. And once you accept that, it just becomes the nature of the animal, and life just gets easy and a lot less stressful. You just dig in and get to work. So if you haven't heard us talk with us, guys, this is what we're going to be talking about at LifeCon 2016 times about 1,000. And it's all about how to market like it's the actual year you live in, which isn't 1992 if you didn't know that. It is 2016, and 2017 is around the corner. So check out LifeCon at bestlifeconever.com, and love to see you guys there and your teams there if this is something that you think you could get value from. So thank you so much for listening in to Life by Design for Chiropractors, the voice of reason in chiropractic.